Thank you. Good morning. Today is Monday, December the 9th. This is the Cosmetology and Barber Examiners Committee meeting, and we are starting with the Complaint Committee. It is 9:02, and I apologize for the delay. I am going to turn this over to Pam Spicer, our counsel for all of our complaints at this time, and she will go ahead and guide you. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
7 lipsticks.
Good morning, everyone. You'll see that you have 86 cases or complaints on your iPad to review. I also had a handout this morning, which is an addendum to the legal report, represents numbers 87 through 92. And I know you haven't had a chance to review those, so I'll give you a moment to review those. And I know it's a long legal report, so I'll happy to answer any questions that you all have.
These represents are new.
Represents are not on the iPads. Yes, correct.
Okay, and they weren't included on what you sent us last week?
No, they are not.
Correct.
They are not. You're correct. It was working this morning. I wonder if somebody switched mine. Okay.
And I'll go ahead on the represents that are the addendum. I'm not going to speak to each one, but generally speaking, these are complaints that have been pending a while. You can tell by the case numbers. And after multiple attempts at service, we've been unable to serve, which will be a problem in litigation. When I say service, that's obviously either likely through certified mail, but if we don't have a good address, then obviously I wouldn't be able to get them served.
There was some of those same situations prior to case 87 as well, yeah?
Correct. I just wanted to point your attention to those. Another good example is on number 88. When it's a shop, we can obviously request an inspection to see if the shop is still operating, but obviously that's not possible when it's an individual respondent.
And when it states that there's more than once that a barber or stylist or Cosmo is licensed from out of state, do we know what state those are?
Hello. Okay. I don't know on that. I know that there is one that I said that on. I don't know if there's multiple. I would have to go back and check. We may or may not know.
There was one previous to the amendment and then one inside it now. I was just curious if we could.
If you'll give me the numbers, I can check on that.
Okay, I'll look the other one up because I made a note.
So in the license file of our licensees, which would be the respondent, we write the initials of the state that they're coming from. So in the event we ever have to do a research like California did, we've done it for Texas, we look for those letters so that we know, okay, who's come from Texas? Do we have a concern? Is something going on? So we do enter it as part of the license file. Does that
Right,
help
so
you?
we would have that.
We can obtain it,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, great. Thank you. That answers my question.
Speaking to that, Roxanne, that I guess when someone's applied.
The minute they apply, we
Right.
enter the state they're coming from, or states.
Right. So I guess the difference would be if this was pursuant to a notice of violation and the inspector just put in the notice of violation that the person was licensed in another state unless they specifically unless the inspector specifically said what state, I might not know. So that'd be the only difference.
But we could research it tied to the current name back to the initial application.
Only if they're licensed. If they are licensed. If they're not licensed, then we wouldn't, yes.
I only
licensed
asked
with
that
us.
to see if there's a
Yeah,
certain
pattern.
trend from a certain state to see.
Absolutely. That's the reason we started entering it in 2013, to make sure that we caught anything in the future as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pam, on case number 37, shop had moved to a different suite. Is that a salon suite kind of thing, or is that a different location within a shopping center kind of?
My understanding on that complaint, it would be within the same physical location,
Okay.
different suite.
Is that why it's being treated different than case 79? Because it was a different address? Because it's referring to the same terminology, but based on your current description of it being moved inside the same facility.
I have 79 as a represent.
78, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
78.
On the summary, it doesn't specifically say it was within a suite.
Right, it's just saying a change. They're both referring to change, but the difference was one was in the same space. But isn't each one individually licensed and gives us the ability to not find one if they switch from the northeast corner to the southwest corner of the building? I almost feel like the standard should be held the same.
Correct. On 37, I can go back and look. There may have been some additional issue that caused me to do the letter of warning. And so I'm happy to go back and look at that one and then let you know at the full board meeting what I find. And then if you all want to change the recommendation, we can. On 78, I can check, but since I didn't specifically say suite, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing that we shouldn't treat them the same, but if I didn't say suite, it was probably a different physical address. And then, of course, this one's being closed because now this shop is closed for business.
And
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ron. I guess I was just referring to whether they stayed open or not, the fact that they would be fined equivalently. I think it's tough enough on us as a board, especially with inspectors, to have that many more locations to oversee when it comes to suites. And I certainly don't, if they're going to be an individual business, I think whether it's one chair or 20 chairs, they should be treated equivalently.
I'll look at 37 and make sure there wasn't anything else within
Might
the
be.
complaint, and then we can look at the recommendation during the full board meeting.
Frank, are you suggesting that they, if they're moving in a suite like that, that they would need a change of address notification to the board or a new inspection or something like that?
I think it should be treated the same one way or the other. I mean, if the row of stores across the street, if the sandwich guy from the corner moved from that corner to this corner over here, and we go to inspect him, and he's not there, and we don't know he moved, I think it puts a burden on the inspector and this board to not be able to govern properly, and that's our duty.
And the change of location, I think, it's that application that's needed regardless, so we can inspect. The only difference would be if you moved your shop from, West Tennessee all the way to Middle Tennessee, it's a completely new location, if you will. Somebody might have owned it, so you've moved, versus within the same big area of a salon and you switch from suite A in one corner to suite C, you have some common equipment that you shared. So it's still a change in location, and we should, but there is a difference, right? In the full change, if you really moved, there's a chance that everything is completely different and new there, that we've never seen.
Same can happen in an office complex,
Yeah.
Rox.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go to a corner suite that doesn't have hot running water,
Right.
right? I mean, so I think it just, so we don't get caught up in being
Always
subjective
be
to
consistent.
what is. I think it should
Yeah.
just be clear
Yeah,
cut,
I agree, yeah.
be held to the same standards.
Yeah, and for the salon suite folks, it can be confusing, because they think I'm just moving, I'm using still the same main area, but I'm just moving across the hall or whatever, so that happens.
On number 17, it has, in past cases, that there was a debt that was owed sent to collections. Do we know, has that been paid prior to us issuing a new fine?
That I don't know. I would have to check with my paralegal and have him check on that for us.
I just want to make sure that if we're issuing a new fine, that it's also going to be paid. We can issue fines all day long. If they're not getting paid, then it doesn't matter. So I'd like to see if that was paid. Also, case number 52, it says that the inspector went out, but the shop was not open at the date of inspection. Do we know, have we returned?
On 52, I wouldn't be able to speak to whether or not they've returned. I can check on that as well to see. I may not know, though, but I can check to see if there's been an inspection. Note that the license expired in 2017, so they may not have gone back out.
And the last one that I had a question about was 65. We've got a case, but there's no info about it, so I don't know if I was just missing something.
Thank you, I was looking for that one.
65 and 66 are related cases. This is pursuant to inspection. The shop, which is 65, and then the owner-manager is 66. And then in my recommendation, it's 100 to 66, 600 to the shop, 65.
Could you just clarify case 81? It's a represent. And I'm just trying to understand if licenses were revoked, this was a fraudulent license claim.
80 and 81 are the companion cases. 80 is the shop owner, 81 is the shop. Roxana and I attended mediation in this matter. There were concerns addressed by the administrative law judge. At that time, of course, the shop and the owner are represented by counsel. We did attempt to settle. I would not say that the settlement offer was necessarily refused, but there were issues that prevented the shop owner from staying at the mediation. Also, the administrative law judge, as I said, had some concerns about going forward in this matter. Now, the shop is closed, so that's why the new recommendation is to issue a letter of warning to the owner, which would be number 80.
Gotcha.
And
Actual
being-
shop is closed after all of that. Is there anything that's flagged on personal licenses
We can flag it in the system on number 80.
for the shop owner?
Correct.
And he's a licensee, obviously, so in his capacity as a manager, he would need to know the laws and rules and make sure they're carried out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And closure on the shop complaint would be consistent with what we've done on other shops that have closed.
Right.
Give me just a little more data on 72. Seems like it just Poof went away.
Well, on 72, I hate to say poof went away would be accurate, but the respondent's criminal case.
I don't know why I said poof, but it
Well,
looks like it went away.
The respondent's criminal issues have been expunged, so it is sort of poof went away. And given the age of the complaint, that is why the new recommendation has been submitted by legal. Because obviously in the summary, this was an anonymous complaint. And then the allegations involve a criminal matter, which has now been expunged. So we cannot get any information on that.
That wasn't a bad analogy, actually.
Yes, it is poof.
To expunge it.
That wasn't the ending I expected.
All right. Pam, in case number 1, schools are reporting hours, I guess, if they're not in by the 10th. Roxana would know.
Correct.
We're seeing that one is pretty much unfounded.
In the recommendation, what I can do is we can close the complaint, but include to check the hours, just so we don't tie that one up during the board meeting, but we can make a note to check the hours. Obviously, if they're not submitting the hours timely, I have a feeling that they are, but I'm saying if we determine that they're not in the future, we can always open a new complaint.
Okay.
And the process for the hours report, for you to know, is we tend to receive them around the 10th. Many do run late, so we understand that and try to be considerate. We passed a rule many years ago to add $25 penalty if they reported late. We've yet to add the penalty to anyone. Our goal isn't to make money off this. It is to get the schools to be compliant. So if they are late and we give it that extra week or so, depending on holidays and weekends, we send a letter. By the time you have a second letter, we're either going to be adding the penalty or we have the right to open a complaint. So if this school didn't have a complaint any other reason, then you can rest assured that they're timely. Not all of them, again, get them to us on the 10th, but we've gotten much, much better. They're all, including the high schools and the TCAT schools, are scanned in the system. So now there's nothing in paper. So it's really changed drastically and made it much easier in the event that the board should say, I really want this person's hours audited, or we choose to audit someone, we have it at our disposal.
How is it audited with the allegation that there's not an instructor there? Is that just an inspection, or?
It would have to be an inspection, and we wouldn't catch them on that day, and obviously, we can do repeat inspections to try to see if that's the case. The way the hourly reports are submitted is it should be a locked PDF document. That way, the office, no one can alter it. It looks exactly as it's submitted from the school. The second page, or second sheet, if you will, has the instructor information, and so they list the instructor's name, license number. If you're using a barber instructor assistant or a junior instructor in the Cosmo world, that license number should be there as well. But any given day, there's no way for the office to know who was there and who wasn't, other than to have repeat inspections. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have any other questions? Okay.
Just to recap, since it was a long report, on number 17, I'm going to check on the collection issue. On number 37, we're going to address that with the full board, and I'm going to check to make sure if there wasn't anything else that caused me to recommend a letter of warning. And then on number 52, we're going to check on the inspection issue. And I think that was the only three. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We need a motion at
We
this
need a
time?
motion, yes.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve with those changes?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve with the address changes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Reciprocity Committee.